Hello everyone, this is Tom from Dirk Witte Music Store in Utrecht, the Netherlands. Today we are taking a look at a very cool re-release or a reissue of a very cool Rickenbacker bass guitar. And it's not what you would expect, because you might see this body shape and think to yourself, oh, that's a 4001 or a 4003. We've seen that before. No. This is actually a Rickenbacker 4030S, which is very similar to the 4001 and 4003 bass guitars, but it's short scale. So maybe you can already tell that the bridge is set quite far up into the body, and as well as for the pickups, these are quite close together, because this is indeed a 30.5-inch scale length bass guitar, whereas the normal 4003, 4001 bass guitars and a lot of other electric bass guitars are 32 inches when it comes to the scale length. So that then just makes for a little bit of a different playing experience and a little bit of a different sound. And to make things even cooler, we've got not one, not two, but we've got 3 of these bass guitars in. So I am now holding the Maple Glow finished one, so this is basically like the natural finish. Really stunning looking. But we've also got the Jet Glow one over here, so that is basically just all black. And the third but not least, maybe the most iconic one, the Fire Glow one in all of its glory. So 3 of these really cool high-end Rickenbacker bass guitars. And yeah, like I said, I'm pretty sure that these are just basically just like 4001, 4003 bass guitars, but short scale. So yeah, also with some of those very much of the same specs. So without further ado, let's dive into those. Let's dive into the specs. So we have then got a maple body, a multi-piece maple body. Obviously this one in a stunning Maple Glow finish, where you can see all of that stunning maple natural wood grain. And it is also a neck through construction, so that is obviously also a very cool and unique type of a feature of Rickenbacker bass guitars. The 4001, 3 and now just also the 4030 bass. Neck through construction, so you've then got the wings added over here on the sides, but this is just a one long piece, a long piece of multiple layers of wood made up out of maple and of walnut. So it goes all the way up to the headstock, as you can tell. So you've then got 2 long pieces of maple on each side, then a strip of walnut going through the middle. Looks super cool. The same goes for the black one, which you can then unfortunately not see, but that is also then that same type of a neck through construction. And again, like I said, maple wings. You have then got 2 Rickenbacker single coil bass pickups, and these are then also a little bit closer together as opposed to what you would find on a 4001 and 4003 bass guitar. So also making for a little bit of a different sound, but you still get those really iconic Rickenbacker bass tones that we all know and love. Obviously the tones that you get from a Rickenbacker bass are really unlike any other electric bass guitar. It is not a B bass, it is not a jazz bass, it is also not a Music Man Stingray. It is really its own thing, and that is how these are just, if you ask me, just the coolest bass guitars that you can really get. Yeah, this is still that very classic, really one of the coolest bass guitars that you can really get so really kind of like the coolest bass guitars that you can get possibly in the world. Also got this very unique bridge bass design or bass bridge design, also with a built-in mute. So you've got screws on each side over here that you can then turn, and then a foam piece or a piece of foam then gets raised and then gets pushed into the to the strings. so that you can then get a muted bass tone. So that is very, very cool and very much traditional design. Kind of like resembles that of a Fender Jaguar bridge, where you can also like raise a foam piece, or also with like old guitars made by Gretsch from like the 1950s and the 1960s. As for the controls, obviously that is then done on the front of the body, so routed onto the top of the body on this white plastic pickguard, with a 3-way pickup selector switch for each of your pickups, and then you've then got dual volumes, and then dual, I believe it was like a bass and a treble control, but it kind of like just comes down to that it is pretty much just a tone control. They are obviously doing it a little bit differently at Rickenbacker, but it kind of just boils down to that it just works as a tone control, as with most guitars and most bass guitars. What is cool though is that you've also got this push-pull pod. So this knob right here then pulls upwards, because that then activates the vintage circuit, I believe. Yeah, pull means vintage. So you then got like a more vintage tone, which is a little bit less hot, I would say, and yeah, just sounds a little bit older and a little bit more like vintage style, as the name says. So that is also very cool to have that included. You also have that on the 4003 bass guitars that we've actually covered not too long ago. Input jack over here on the side, and then moving on to the neck. That is then obviously still that same maple walnut material as on the inside of the body here. And it then features a rosewood fingerboard, which is lacquered, also very much a Rickenbacker feature, with these dot pearloid inlays. And as for the profile, that is also a very particular profile, because this is a D shape, like the capital letter D, how it is kind of like squared. That shape is how this neck feels. So it is very much flat on the back and quite some shoulder. Pretty particular. I'm not sure if I love it as much, but I'm sure that a lot of people in this world really, really dig this neck profile. Obviously a lot of bass players, but this is quite a unique neck profile, but it just plays really, really well as is, and you do get used to it quite fast. But we also had that same type of neck shape on the 4003 basses. So it is definitely kind of like their unique bass neck profile. Moving on to the headstock, the big old and very iconic Rickenbacker headstock, featuring obviously also your very, very cool looking Rickenbacker trussware cover with your logo done really big there. So then reads made in USA there on the bottom, and you've then obviously got your trussware adjustment underneath that trussware cover. You also then got these really cool walnut wings over here on the sides. You've got a Bakelite nut, which is 42.9 millimeters wide. Then you've got these Shure bass tuners. Flip it over. They look a little bit tiny, but they work really, really well, so don't worry on that. And obviously the strings fit just perfectly well, as you can really tell. Yeah, last thing to mention, all of these basses, all three of them obviously come with their own hard shell cases. Rickenbacker hard shell cases, which we would expect and we love to see obviously with these very, very high-end bass guitars. But yeah, that is pretty much all that there is to cover to this really cool bass model. Really cool to see this re-released. A short scale Rick bass. Didn't know that these existed before these came in, but yeah, they are just incredibly cool. They really do retain that very classic Rickenbacker sound and the look, obviously, but then a little bit different also. Then the playing experience is just a little bit different, and I think that it is also very interesting that as opposed to making the neck shorter or a lot shorter, they also then opted to install the bridge further into the body so that it does retain that very iconic Rickenbacker bass look. So yeah, incredibly cool bass, and just plays and sounds incredible, as we love to hear from Rickenbacker bass guitar. So let's move on to that part and let's see what it sounds like. But first, if you're interested in these or in either one of these, so the Maple Glow, the Fire Glow, or the Jet Glow Rickenbacker 4030S bass guitars, be sure to head over to the links in the description for further details. If you enjoyed this demo, be sure to like the video and to subscribe to the channel for more weekly demos of cool bass guitars like these. Not so much bass guitars, but more so electric guitars and acoustic guitars, but also then occasionally bass guitars like now. Also be sure to like us and follow us on our socials, Instagram and Facebook. Links are also in the description. With all that being said, let's hear what these incredibly cool Rickenbacker 4030S bass guitars sound like. Going to be playing it through an Impact B25 head and cabinet. I think I'm going to start off with the Maple Glow one for the bridge pickup, and then I'm going to go to the Fire Glow one for both of them on, and then I'm going to use the Jet Glow one for the neck pickup, so that they can all get their fair share. So let's move on to that part and let's take these incredibly cool Rickenbacker short scale bass guitars for a spin.